Agent Key, yeah, selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key, she's selling Sacramento. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Sacramento, she's selling Sacramento, she's selling Sacramento, oh yeah. Agent Key, yeah, selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key, she's selling Sacramento. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling Sacramento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling Sacramento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack, selling slack. Selling slack, selling slack, selling Sacramento, buying the block back. Selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling slack, selling Sacramento, buying the block back.
Agent Key, yeah, selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key, she's selling Sacramento. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Agent Key, yeah, selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key, she's selling Sacramento. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Selling Sacramento, she's selling Sacramento, she's selling Sacramento, oh yeah. Agent Key, yeah, selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento. Agent Key, she's selling Sacramento. Oh yeah, oh yeah. She's selling Sacramento. She's selling Sacramento.
Hey y'all, thank you for tuning in. Say something in the comment section if you're out there. We're preparing to go on the air.
9, 5. Here we go.
Hey everyone, it is Wednesday. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are officially selling Sacramento. On today's show, we are doing part 2 of race and home ownership in Sacramento. And last week, we started on a national level. We went down the stats of the numbers on a national level, on a state level, and now we're going to go to the state and local level. But before we get to those numbers, I got some really exciting information in my email right before I left the house to come here, and I want to share it with you all. And you know what time of the month it is? It's around that time of the month where we get stats on market conditions and the how many homes have sold, what the median sales price is, how long houses are staying on the market. So for the month of December, the housing stats are in. Let me pop on my glasses. All right, y'all. Y'all ready? Okay, so first I want to preface this number with this. We have been as high as $565,000 for a median sales price in Sacramento, maybe even higher at some point, a median sales price. And if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you've heard that median sales price over the past several months has been dropping. And the last number that I reported was that median sales price was at $510,000. Guess what it is today? $485,000. That is a 5%, 4.9% change, almost a 5% change. And to put things into really good perspective, this time in 2021, in December 2021. So this number 485 is December 2022, last month. December 2021, that number was $512,000. $512,000. So we are now at $485,000 for a median sales price. We talked about this before. It's all about the numbers. Our truth about the market comes from the numbers, not what people are predicting. You cannot predict market fallout. A lot of people are trying to do that. That is not what's happening here. We're seeing a gradual reduction, a gradual decline, and a market reset. The market is falling in accordance, in direct correlation to the interest rate hike, the hike in interest rates. Because at the end of the day, a house is going to sell for what a buyer is willing to pay for it. And so the buyers have spoken. Median sales price in Sacramento County for December 2022 is $485,000. And the month before that, let's talk about the number of homes that sold in December. The number of homes that sold in the month of November of last year was 785 homes. I want to bring that number back up because the month before that, it was a higher number, and the month after that, it dropped. And I think the numbers preceding that for several months prior, it had just continued to drop. For the month of December, that number went up 2.4%. 804 homes sold in the month of December versus the 785 in November. So how do we read this? We see the median sales price dropping. We see the number of sales actually go up. So that is buyer behavior. Now let's talk about active inventory. Active inventory is the number of homes on the market that are available for sale. And I'm looking for the actual formal definition so that I can tell y'all what that is properly. But basically, that's what it is. It's the number of homes on the market available to be sold. In the month of November, active inventory was 1,871 homes. Prior to that, the number of inventory kept going down, got to 1,871. The month of December did not change. Now, active inventory is seller behavior. That's determined by how many sellers want to put their homes on the market. So in the month of December, that number went down 21.5%. 1,468 homes available for sale on the market in Sacramento County during the month of December. Why the big difference? We can only speculate. I would speculate and say, number one is because the season, the time of the year, it's the holidays, and fewer people just traditionally put fewer homes on the market during the holidays. But number two, also, there was still that sentiment that interest rates were high and buyers just weren't buying. And it was a tight time where sellers were trying to they had to make a decision. Either you're going to drop that price or it's not going to get sold, right? I'd be interested in learning how many price reductions we saw from the month of November to December. I'll get those numbers and bring them to you all at some point. Sellers who dropped their home prices, sellers who listed their homes at the right price, got their homes sold. Sellers who did not comply or weren't ready to get with that either didn't put their homes on the market, or their homes are still sitting on the market, or they canceled the listings. Median days on the market, that's how many days a home is staying on the market before it goes into contract. The month of November, it was 23 days. And I'll tell you, month after month after month, for the past several months, that number has been increasing. For a very long time, it was like less than a week. Then as interest rates went up, that number of how long properties stay on the market and don't go into contract continued to increase. So November, it was at 23 days. For the month of December, it is at 26 days. So we're almost at that 30-day mark with how long houses are staying on the market. Now that is a sign of, that's something that happens as a result of the seller's actions and the buyer's actions, because the seller has the house on the market, but if it's staying on the market too long, that means it's not listed right. It's not priced right. Because then the next action to take it off the market and get an accepted offer would be a buyer making an offer. Buyers might be making offers that sellers don't want. And so that makes a house stay on the market a little bit longer. But we will see that number decrease as soon as the sellers and the buyers have a consensus. When sellers start listing homes at the right price, of where buyers will pull the trigger and say, I'll make an offer on that home. So I had to share those quick stats with you, the December 2022 statistics, Sacramento housing market, and the headline of this market update is the median sales price drops 5%. Homes stay on the market longer. And to put that into perspective, in a normal market, year over year, a seller or homeowner can expect to gain a 3 to 5% equity increase year over year, 3 to 5%. The equity gain that most sellers realized during COVID, the gain was about 27% because of that interest rate reduction. Now that rate has gone back up, and so let me back up. That afforded a lot of people opportunities to do some really great things, to get into homes. However, even though the rate was low and people were really able to buy spending less money for money, the cost of money was cheaper. The simultaneously, what ended up happening is it pushed prices higher because there was so much competition because there's not enough inventory. The other good thing that happened was that if you were already in your home and you refinanced, you're probably sitting really pretty right now. If you had an interest rate that was 4 or 5% or higher, and you were able to refinance during that time down to something like 1 or 2% or 3%, you're probably that was a great move for you to make. For those who, how can I say this? For those who want to sell their homes now and want to realize that same equity gain or sell at those high prices that happened during COVID, I cannot stress enough that time period has passed because the rates have gone back up. That ship has sailed. And these numbers, these are the facts, this is the truth. These numbers are showing you we have to get back to what the market was before COVID with regard to pricing. The buyers have spoken. Median sales price, Sacramento County, $485,000. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you all before I went into today's show, which is race and home buying in Sacramento. We're going to talk about the problem. I'm going to bring you the facts, and then we're going to discuss some solutions. And if you are tuned in today, listening or watching on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, happy to have you on board. I see you, Miss Cheryl. Happy New Year. So if you're watching me live online right now, feel free to say something in the comments. I see some of you out there watching. And we are going to take a quick break. But again, when we come back from the break, we are going to talk about race and home buying in Sacramento. We'll talk about the problem. Black families fall further behind in home ownership. We'll talk about the facts, California's future, how it depends on housing. And then we'll talk about solutions, bringing you background and history, housing legislation sponsored by the California Association of REALTORs, and more. You are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Hey, Mr. Noble, how you doing, sir? Nice to see you. Miss Cheryl, nice to catch up with you. Yes, ma'am. So good to see you on here. I miss talking to you all. We all have to get together again. Ray, how are you, sir? If y'all are out there watching, let me know you're there. I know, you guys, it looks like a storm is brewing. Yes. I didn't even check the weather before I left. Are we going to be able to get out of here? Yeah. Unbelievable. What's unbelievable? The weather? Are you saying the weather's unbelievable? Oh, boy. Okay, so what time is it now? It's 1. So as the hours go by, the chances for rain just continue to increase. By this evening, it's going to be, yeah, right. So the wind, okay, so the wind is not going to be too bad. It was like 40, 50 miles an hour and higher when it was really bad. Yeah. So right here, it's saying it's going to be 15, 16, 18 mile winds. So that's not too bad. Oh, you said, I asked how you are, and you said unbelievable. Okay, Mr. Unbelievable. I heard that. Yeah, so it'll be raining shortly. Yeah. So tomorrow it's supposed to be clear skies, I guess. They got the sun peeking out the cloud at 63 degrees, but then rain for the next 7 days after that.
We need that.
Yeah, we do. Just that one storm was just a little bit scary.
we're not used to those high ends.
Yeah.
That boy came to wreak havoc, boy. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
So like the Wizard of Oz. I hope somebody will come flying to my back door.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That it was pretty. I lost power. And I went to my friends at 1 a.m. because it was like I was moving around like a blind person, like, oh my gosh, I cannot see a thing. Well, I had them. I did. But it was hard even navigating with a flashlight. It was hard navigating with a flashlight. And then just the idea of being in the house without, the TV, no nothing. I don't even think I had what you call it, internet connection.
No, you didn't.
Oh, we're coming back. Okay,
3.
we're coming back, y'all.
1.
Hey everyone, we're back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are selling Sacramento. On today's show, race and home buying in Sacramento. And we want to give some background to this information we are going to present today. I say we, I like to say we because I'm a team player, y'all. We're all in this together. We want to present the information about what the problem is, and then what the facts are, and then the solutions. So let's start first with this article that I found online at pewtrust.org, and it was posted October 13th, 2022, so just a few months ago. And it states that Black families fall further behind on homeownership. Some cities and states are trying to boost Black homeownership, which dropped to a 60-year low even before the economic turmoil wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Black homeownership fell in 2019 to 40.6%, down from the 2004 peak of 49.7%. Let me stop right there. So there was a point in history in 2004, prior to the great market crash, where almost 50% of Blacks in the country owned their home. And in 2019, it fell to 40.6%. Now that's countrywide. When we look statewide, those numbers change because California housing prices are higher and affordability is much lower. So that percentage shoots way down. And then when we get to Sacramento County, the percentage drops even further. The rate has rebounded somewhat since then, but advocates remained dismayed at how, decades after the 1968 Fair Housing Act, Black families still struggle to become homeowners at the same rate as their white peers. To see the Black homeownership rate lower than the generation before is shocking, considering what earlier generations faced, said Janique Radcliffe. She's the vice president of the Housing Financial Policy Center at the Urban Institute in Washington, D.C. The persistence of redlining, the Great Recession, gentrification, and the increasing number of homes being scooped up by investors all have contributed to a growing Black-white disparity in home ownership, which is larger now than it was in the early 1960s, before the 1968 Fair Housing and other civil rights legislation. The Urban Institute is working with cities in a dozen states and the District of Columbia on strategies to bring Black homeownership back up. Among them are financial assistance to Black home buyers to help them cover down payments and closing costs, and support for current homeowners facing foreclosure. The gap between white and Black homeownership rates is wider now than it was in 1960, when housing discrimination was rampant and legal. The U.S. Census Data Bureau shows that. In 2022, last year, 74.6% of white households owned their homes, compared with 45.3% of Black households, a gap of more than 29 points. In 1960, the white homeownership rate was 65% and the Black rate was 38%, a 27-point gap. So we have a 29-point gap present day, 27-point gap in 1960. 1968 was the Fair Housing Act. Many people believe, well, since there was this fair housing law, there's a law now that prevents discrimination. So there is no discrimination, right? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. And those numbers show that there is still a problem. And so because we still have a problem, we have to work towards a solution. Recent redlining complaints against banks accused of denying loans to buyers in predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods illustrate the existing barriers. That's one of the problems, ladies and gentlemen. That's just one. I want to read a little bit more, then I'll do a little consensus. So the story goes on to report that, for example, New Jersey-based Lakeland Bank created a $12 million home ownership fund as a part of a settlement with the Department of Justice, which accused it of redlining. The bank didn't admit to any wrongdoing, but it agreed to increase mortgage lending in communities of color in the wake of a 7-year federal investigation of its practices. In the past year, the Justice Department has negotiated similar settlements with lenders in Houston, Memphis, and Philadelphia. What I want to summarize is that we have a lending institution and a housing institution built on redlining and discrimination. When you have a home built on an unstable foundation, it's almost ridiculous to go into the home and remodel and think that you're going to get a different result because you remodeled the home. If you have a home built on a foundation that's sinking, a contractor is going to tell you that you've got to shore up that land. You got to tear the whole home down. There's no saving the home because you got a bad foundation. The whole home must be torn down. The foundation needs to be resecured, and then the whole home built again. And in some instances, the foundation isn't salvageable, and you've got to relocate where you build, and that land is just no longer usable. We have an entire infrastructure built on racism, and we can't be complacent that creating a law is going to make the changes necessary to produce equity. We must do the hard work of dismantling the system, and I don't want you to hear that in a negative way. Sometimes you have to dismantle stuff and put it back together again the proper way. I just thought about, when I twist the cap on to something and when that cap goes on and you're not twisting it on right because it gets stuck before you get it all the way closed. So you have to just back on up, take it off, and then try it again until it goes on right. So we need to back out of this system that we call housing and financing and try it again in a more fair and equitable manner without the lens of racism, so that there is real equity being produced. So those are the facts. I'm sorry, that is the problem. That's the problem. Let's talk about the facts. The facts are there's still a housing shortage across the country and in California in particular. With the housing shortage, California needs 3.5 million new housing units by 2030. This is California. Now, we're not even with these stats, which are coming from housingforcalifornia.com. This is all of us, not just Black people. California needs 3.5 million new housing units by 2030, 7 years. 72% of Californians cannot afford the median home price, California's median home price. 53% consider leaving the state due to the high cost of living. So, what are some of the solutions? We're going to talk about the solutions because there are some entities at work really trying to do the hard work now. I believe that sadly, it took a lot to happen with other people for us to get to this point today where people are willing to do the hard work. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you all know what those things are, where we are now a whole lot more sensitive to not only the need for housing for those who are unhoused. I hear that that's the word now that they're using for the unhoused, but also being more empathetic to the inequities in housing for Blacks. So there's just a lot more empathy. People are very much awake and aware to that. So if we're talking about California's future depends on housing, let's break it down. Let's get to, I wanted to show you all, just kind of paint a picture of there's a dire need for housing for everyone, but there needs to be a concentrated effort to right the wrong for African Americans so that we don't continue to get left behind. So the housing affordability for Black California holds half of that of whites, illustrating a persistent wide home ownership gap and wealth disparities. This is a report from the California Association of REALTORs. They have really pledged to take the lead on righting this wrong. So that's one of the big key players because, as you all recall, if you listen to this show for any length of time, I shared with you how they apologized. The California Association of Realtors apologized. The National Association of Realtors apologized within the past couple of years for their part in the direct discrimination that took place in the 60s, preventing Blacks from getting into home ownership. And so now they've pledged to take the lead on righting this wrong in a big way. So let's talk about the report, the research that they did. They first researched, okay, what are the issues? What are the problems? What is it that we need to attack? Here's what they concluded, that less than 1 in 5 Black California households could afford to purchase the $659,380 statewide median priced home in 2020, compared to 2 in 5 white California households who could afford to purchase the same median priced home. Number one. Number two, they concluded that at an affordability index of 20%, the affordability gap was similarly wide for Latinx households. They're not far behind. Number three, they concluded a minimum annual income of $122,800 was needed to make monthly payments of $3,070, including principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at a 3.3% interest rate. Now, who would love to have that minimum annual income? I don't know very many people that have either, but that's what the report concluded that it takes. Now, there are some of us out there who are making that, and more power to you, but you can't be the only one eating. You cannot be the only one doing well. We've got to reach back and help other people who want to be helped, right? So less than half of Black households earn the minimum income needed, illustrating the gap. The percentage of Black home buyers who could afford to purchase the home was 19% compared to 38% of white households. According to the Census Bureau survey, the 2019 homeownership rate in California was 63.2% for whites, 60.2% for Asians, 44.1% for Latinx, and 36.8% for Blacks. The wide affordability gap in California between whites and people of color demonstrates the legacy of systemic racism in housing, which has created inequities in homeownership rates across these communities. Closing the homeownership gap is essential to closing the generational wealth gap in our country. And so the president, Dave Walsh, said at the time that that's why the California Association of REALTORs is committed to addressing barriers and disparities to make equity in housing and access to affordable homes a reality for all people. So they've introduced legislation, and I'm going to read to you the specifics on this legislation. The first one is requiring California real estate professionals to take implicit bias training. Second is removing discriminatory language in property records. Third is prohibiting discrimination against people living in affordable housing. The fourth is repealing Article 34 of the California Constitution. Fifth is boosting housing construction so homeownership is accessible to all. And I want to go over with you the specifics on each of those legislation items that we just named. So let me pull up my information here. Prohibiting discrimination against residents in affordable housing. We'll start there. So that is Assembly Bill 491, sponsored by Gonzalez. This bill will ensure that multifamily properties provide the occupants of affordable units the same access to common entrances, common areas, and amenities that are available to the occupants of market rate units, and do not isolate affordable units to a specific floor or area. So imagine being a parent and having to tell your child that they can't swim in the pool or enter through the same door as their neighbors. And this is a statement from Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, the author of the bill. She says, as we push for more inclusionary housing throughout California, we need to make sure affordable housing residents aren't treated as second class. Now, if we take that statement and this bill and throw it back into 1960, it lines right up with what was happening back then, which is just direct discrimination. But here we are in 2023, and this is still happening. And you know why it's able to happen? Why? Because we're built on this foundation of racism. So these types of things find their way. They find their way. I like using the analogy of the house being built on a rocky foundation because it's just so appropriate, because we're talking about housing, and it's an easy analogy for people to grasp. So you got this house built on this rocky foundation, and now you've got this issue of people being treated unfairly and discriminated in housing. It's like having a crack appear in the wall and anywhere in the house or in the ceiling, and then you get leaks coming through, and you just keep going back and doing the putty, seal, and paste in hopes that it'll go away. You putty and paste over it, seal it up, and you even paint so that people can't tell that you made a repair. But what happens? Over time, it pops right back up again, because why? The foundation is the issue. So the next bill is Senate Bill 263, and that's sponsored by Senator Susan Rubio. Senate Bill 263 says, this bill now requires a licensee's continuing, or let me give you that headline. Sorry about that. Implicit bias training for real estate professionals is what Senate Bill 263 is. So this bill requires a licensee's continuing education requirement to now include a 2-hour course on implicit bias training for real estate licensees, including actionable steps licensees can take to prevent implicit bias. It also requires the current fair housing training to include participation in interactive training where role play scenarios are used to illustrate live experiences from the perspective of both a consumer and a licensee. I love this one because this is a part of the mindset change. This is the part where the law won't change the mindset, but people have to understand that there is a mindset thought process. We all have biases. We all have them. We all have them. And the more we acknowledge and address them, the easier it makes to have these types of conversations, especially if you're someone like myself that's constantly in a self-improvement mode. There are a lot of people out there that you constantly want to improve. You don't lie to yourself about who you are. I don't lie to myself about who I am. I know that there's a lot about me that's broken and wrong, and I'm trying to be the best I can be. I know that not only are there some days that I get irritated by small things or people or what, I get irritated by myself sometimes, right? But if you're honest about yourself and who you are, then when people give you constructive criticism out of love in relationship, don't go trying to fix somebody and you don't have a relationship with them. A minister friend of mine said, relationship before rebuke. Don't be walking up to nobody trying to rebuke them and you ain't got no relationship with them. However, the people who are in my immediate circle, not only do they have a right to tell me what's wrong with me, I expect them to. And the relationship is reciprocal. Imagine if we all had that type of relationship with one another, where people and classes and races and ethnicities don't get so upset and bothered when the truth is placed in front of them about a situation, whether you were alive when it happened or not. Here is what happened and here are the ramifications. Now, what are we going to do about it? And don't put it off on somebody else, because this is happening as a result of that. So here is what Senator Susan Rubio says about this. As a representative of a large minority community, she says, I know how systemic racism and biases can make it even more difficult for a family trying to achieve the American dream of homeownership. In California, the homeownership gap for people of color is increasing and needs to be closed. This bill is an important step toward ending the disparity. We love that. I'm on board with that. And then I want to hear back from you guys too. What are your thoughts about this? Is this enough? Are they going far enough? Is there more that could be done? What is your feedback about this legislation that I'm sharing with you? Tell me if you're watching. Type it in the comments and I'll share it with everyone. If you're listening, jump online on social media, because we want to make sure that we minimize phone calls, and we really don't take them at all because it interrupts the show. I've only got an hour, but it's very easy for me to read your comments if you put them in the feed. So jump online, come to YouTube or LinkedIn, or where else did I say it was? Facebook, and look for Selling Sacramento or Agent Key, and you'll find the show live every Wednesday. Jump in the chat. Let me know what your thoughts are about this legislation. So the next one is repealing Article 34, SCA number 2, Weiner and Allen, enacted by the voters in 1950. Now, this one sits on the California Constitution right now. Article 34 of the California Constitution requires that any development comprised of low rent, i.e., affordable dwellings, financed in whole or in part by federal, state, or local government, be approved by a vote of the people in the jurisdiction where the project is located. The California Association of Realtors is co-sponsoring SCA2, which seeks to repeal Article 34 in its entirety. Article 34 is saying if you want to build low income housing, you have to get the approval of the voters in the area in which you're building it. How many voters, when you put that on the ballots, are going to approve to have affordable housing built in their backyard? It fails every single time. Every single time. Why? Because the folks that do the voting, majority of them are what? White homeowners. Remember, how is it built? What's the foundation looking like? So you're putting this kind of a vote on a foundation that's already broken. It's going to reject that. So we definitely need to repeal that entire article. I'm all for repealing Article 34. Let me go to, oh my Jesus, there's a lot of comments in the chat section and I haven't been looking at them. Many banks, so many banks do this. Yes, Dion, you were referring to what I had mentioned earlier. Yeah, equity means fairness. Exactly, Ray. Dion says, so true. And that's why some realtors, not all, or banks will try to drive people of color to buy in an all color neighborhood to keep them away from a white neighborhood. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Lower the price of homes to make it more affordable for lower middle class to buy home. Yes, and that's why repealing Article 34 is going to be so important, because it will then allow for the developers to come in and build that type of housing. We are all moving out of the state. Stella Bird said, not so fast, Miss Stella, because we got reparations coming. So I'm not leaving California no time soon. Got to wait for that package to get here. And Dion
Keisha too.
Hey, you guys, are y'all still out there?
Is that
What's it beeping? Is that the alarm?
That's the
Oh,
alarm.
probably
Hold on.
resetting. Yeah,
You got a lot of crises.
yeah.
No,
You guys, we
Oh,
just
it's
had
good.
a
Go
power
ahead and do
outage.
yes, I got you.
Everything went out.
Everything. Do that. Mhm.
Are y'all out there watching? If you're still watching, let me know. I see there's several folks. Y'all hung on. I heard that.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Okay, it said my mic was unplugged. Can y'all hear me now? I think I'm good now. So our power went down.
It's coming.
Everything went down. The lights went out. It went black.
That's a good look right
You
there.
go there.
Was it the whole building?
Yes, the entire.
Oh
because
my
I went-
God.
That's how I ran over here.
Oh, wow.
That's you know, through the light up.
As soon as mine went out, I was like,
So is the wind picking up out there?
That's a good
Oh, I can see those trees moving a little bit, but I didn't think it was too bad over here.
I thought it was
Yeah.
gonna be like
Okay.
Let's see what's that.
Okay, you guys were. Oh, I'm back. Thanks, Ray. I'm glad you can hear me. We're bringing the show back up on the air. Everything went off. All right, y'all. We're going to come back as soon as we get back on air. I know. It was a good conversation. You had interruptions in your service too? Yeah. So our internet went down. The power went out. The radio station went out. The whole building apparently was shut down. But thankfully only for less than 60 seconds? Not too long.
You could do your own air, but like local stations still.
Local stations down? Are we internet? Are we on the internet?
Should be. Tell you how you know it.
It's bad across Sacramento. I'm going to head back and check the area.
That's right.
Yes, go check on. This is a good time to test these new areas where the houses are being built.
She wanted to be sitting in
You down there too?
But I was going to use box pros because it's helping for the air.
Okay. Y'all, it looks like we're going to have to do part 2 of part 2 next Wednesday. I have like about 8 minutes. I'm good to keep rolling. Okay. The only problem now, Ray, is that we're not up on the radio. We got the internet back, but we don't have the radio feedback just yet. Dang it. Yes, the radio went out too. Your radio went out, or this? You're talking about the station, Miss Lorraine. I know our radio went out too. All 3 of the lights need to light up? Where are they? Which ones are lit right now?
When you see all 3 of these lit.
Oh, we only have 1 light lit.
Right.
We need all 3 lit.
Still trying to connect.
Okay,
That's the
so
local radio.
y'all, the whole system is trying to reconnect. Yes, the station. Okay, yeah. The entire station did go out. We got 1 light out of 3. The system is rebooting, y'all.
Because it's looking for it. One other thing I could think of is the one underneath Keisha probably needs to be reset too.
okay.
If it doesn't, it's going to blow through everything anyway.
What's that?
There is an old
This guy?
90-year-old looking thing.
It's
underneath
actually on this side.
Oh, okay. So, hey, you guys, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and log off because I only have 6 more minutes and they've got to do some finagling to the equipment here to get the station back up on the air. So thank you all for tuning in so much. I love you. Remember, if you're doing what you were created to do, I'll see you at the top. Catch y'all next Wednesday. All right. Can we touch on my previous comment about people moving out of California because they need to hear what you were about to say? Oh, Miss Dion, my thoughts right now. I think I was so much on a roll, I forgot what I was going to say. I got it all right here, though. I will get back in commission next week. All right. I got to go, y'all. Take